Hi, everyone. My name is Raquel with rcpmag.com, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us. The topic of today's Tech Talk is how the Power Platform enables outstanding IT service management, sponsored by Provance. Before we begin, I'd like to cover just a couple of housekeeping details. Today will be an interactive event, so if you do have any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A box. Additionally, Provance has provided a link which corresponds with today's event, so please take a moment to check that out. It's on the right-hand side of your console. And finally, this webcast is being recorded, so keep an eye out for a link in your email so that you can rewatch the presentation or share it with a colleague. And now I'd like to introduce you to our three speakers. Today we will be hearing from Amit Patney, who is a Senior Technical Specialist at Microsoft Business Solutions in the Northeast region, as well as Brian Field, who is a Senior Consultant and Program Manager at Provance, and also Chris Mahanes, who is Senior Power Apps Developer at Provance. So we are in for a great event, and with that, I'll pass the floor to Amit to get us started.
Thank you, and good afternoon, gentlemen. Let's get into it. Brian and Chris, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead first, Chris, if that's okay.
Yeah.
As Raquel mentioned, I'm a senior consultant and project manager here with Provance. I'm located in the Washington, D.C. area. I've been with Provance since 2004. And prior to that, I was actually a customer of Provance. So it was a great experience I had from that side of the table, and I was happy to be able to join Provance when I had an opportunity. My expertise is in ITSM as well as ITAM over my entire career, from managing call centers for government outsourcers and other areas of the business in outsourcing engagements, primarily with managed service provider. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Amit and Raquel, for having us today. It's really exciting to be able to talk to you all today. So I'm Chris Mahanes. I'm based in Virginia. The Senior Power Apps Developer for Provance. I've been working with CRM and the Power Platform since CRM 2011. Been seeing a lot of evolution throughout the platform, throughout the years, and we made a commitment to build a ITSM solution on the Power Platform to enable that workload on the Dynamics and Power Platform. For organizations, been dealing with ITSM for a number of years, deployed it and developed it for such industries such as education, healthcare, government, many different aspects. So really excited.
Thank you, Chris. Brian, I'll move over to you. Can you please share with the audience a little bit of background on Provance?
Yeah, absolutely. So Provance, we're a global Microsoft ISV partner. And as Chris already mentioned, we build enterprise-level ITSM and ITAM applications on the Power Platform, inclusive of Dynamics 365 and Power Apps. Now, there might be a lot of people on this call who have never heard of Provance or don't really know a lot about us, but Provance has actually been around since 1997, which is when I was working with them or shortly thereafter. And at that point, there was a focus on ITAM and then applications related to ITAM and ITSM. And then over the years, we migrated into the Microsoft area with the Service Manager ITAM product. And then finally, in about 2014 is where we transitioned into the Dynamics 365 and ITSM space in particular. And in fact, in 2018, Provance won a Microsoft Partner Award for our work in the ITSM and Dynamics space.
Thanks, Brian. Chris, next one's for you. Can you tell us why you chose Power Apps to build ServiceTeam IT Service Management? I understand it's not a simple app. It's it was a substantial undertaking. So curious to know the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a lot of different processes within IT service management. So when we were making the commitment to build an application, we wanted to decide, should we build our own platform, such as other ITSM products have done, or, should we use our knowledge of Microsoft? We've been working with Microsoft and being a partner for so many years. We looked at the Power Platform, and we made the decision to go with the Power Platform just based on the capabilities that allowed us to be agile and deploy at a speed that we need to deliver ever-changing business requirements, based on ITIL version 3 to ITIL version 4, there's been some changes that we need to adhere to. So utilizing the Power Platform and the release pipeline and app source to get the updates and the new features to our customer base, we didn't have to take care of that plumbing. We can partner with Microsoft using AppSource to deploy our products and upgrades efficiently to our customers.
Interesting. So what I hear is you're saying the time to value was substantial here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Brian, anything you'd like to add?
It is part of the platform decision. Now we had quite a bit of experience with Dynamics 365 too, and although we may talk about this a little bit later, but I think one of the advantages that we were looking at is the low code, no code experience and what the Power Platform brings to the table in that particular area. I get involved in the consulting and implementation services components of the projects post sale, and that's certainly valuable to me as an implementer and working with customers on their implementations. But I think in addition to just the straight up technical advantages that Chris was really talking about there's a real advantage in being able to be responsive to differing requirements that may come up where maybe we didn't comprehend something necessarily out of the box, but in a certain part of a business, but the infrastructure is there in order to be able to adapt and respond to those requirements relatively easily.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, Chris, could you expand on that a little bit? I know Brian briefly mentioned the low-code, no-code. What advantages does Power App give you as a developer of IT service management solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of different advantages, and the no-code, low-code. When we're thinking about building on Power Apps, we really need to think of the entire Power Platform that we now have access to. So instead of me wanting to create something such as a plugin, a C# plugin, where I have a table and I need to iterate over a number of different records and just do simple CRUD operations, I would have to spend a couple hours understanding the requirements and then building that in my Visual Studio using C#, which is a specialized language that people need to learn. With us using Power Apps, one of the key advantages is now that same C# plugin, when I'm just doing simple CRUD operations, I can now move that into a Power Automate. And it moves from me being in an isolated dev type customization to where I can either work with Brian, who's implementing for a customer, to say, okay, you want this type of Power Automate, let's work on it together and use drag and drop interfaces, no code that's really needed. And then we also still have that dev requirement of, if I want to build something very specialized but still maintain the framework, such as the Fluent UI. I can build a PCF control where an agent can change their view of the data. That visualization is completely changed, but still in the Fluent UI framework that they're familiar with using in Power Apps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I may, Amit, interject here. I think that approach, really has been, not only are we taking advantage of that approach, but we have implemented with respect to the same approach. And by that, I mean there are many elements of the ServiceTeam application which are really configured at the data level, right? So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go in and, even something that might sound relatively simple, like calculating a priority. We have that set up to use data to make that calculation. And you can change it at any given time. And there are other examples like that with respect to, again, managing the application. One that I like, Chris, that you did was the one on the self-service portal, where if I want to build out service catalog items, I don't have to go in, I don't have to go into web templates or anything like that, web pages, HTML, Liquid, what have you, which we have behind the scenes. All I have to do is give you the areas that I want for my service catalog as groupings, and then associate my catalog requests to those areas, all through data. So we've applied that same concept, right, of taking advantage of a platform that we're using and then applying that and using the same concepts within the application itself.
Yeah.
A little bit. So are they specific Power Apps capabilities that stand out to you as enabling the development of ServiceTeam Power Apps over previous approaches that you might have taken, or even functionality that is available to you within Power Apps, right, that aids in the development lifecycle of ServiceTeam?
Amit, I think you broke up during that question. Can you repeat it one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure. Let me see if I can repeat it again. So, are there specific Power App capabilities that stand out to you as a developer, right? So, perhaps over previous approaches that you might have taken, or frankly, even any functionality that is available to you in Power Apps that aids in the development of ServiceTeam.
Absolutely. I mean, I can think of a couple right offhand. So when you're defining the model-driven app, with the new Powerapps Maker, we now have a WYSIWYG type of experience of dragging and dropping what elements we want where. So it accelerates us to have multiple different applications that are tailored to either a different workload or a different security role. Because in the past, we had one sitemap. That's all we had. And we just added all the capabilities to that one sitemap, and then we had all of our applications. So we only really had one sitemap and controlled it by security roles or some other method to show the record types based on someone logging in. With the new model-driven apps, we can now split out an application such as IT service management, which can be a very robust application, but we can segment it based on people's roles or workloads. So that really aids us in being able to create applications that suit users' roles. And that's an easy way for us to manage and organize the data. From a automation perspective, I gave the example of a Power Automate. We had an approvals mechanism in one of our other products. In ServiceTeam, what we wanted to do is create an approval streams feature. And the approval streams is something that Brian and I, when I was in consulting with Brian, we always talked with people, what's your approval process? And then they would have a whole bunch of if, then, and writing it down. And we wanted to make that simpler. All right. Before, we had an approvals that used a combination of dialogues to where you had to choose which approval process that you wanted to do. Then it would go out, find what approvers, and then you'd have to approve it inside of Dynamics. But that wasn't expansive enough, because when I was in consulting, Brian and I would always get requirements of, I want the approvers to be able to do it through email. I wanted to do it through my phone. So when, I went into my role now in development, we took that concept and I said, okay, in approval streams, instead of me writing it down, you're going to create the approval process in the application. So you can start with, I want this approval process for a new VM request offering from the portal. And what that will do is, based on that VM, it's going to go through certain steps, whether it be parallel or sequential, which is all powered by Power Automate. All right, so it's very configurable, but you're creating that data record, that data process that the flow in the background has to follow. And we're leveraging Microsoft approvals, which opens a whole new slew of features for us, because now, using Microsoft approvals, the approvers can see the approvals in Outlook. They can see it in Microsoft Teams, which is huge now. A number of people that we talk to now, they're spending the majority of their times in Microsoft Teams. And we want to present notifications and data that needs to be actioned in the application the user spends most of their time on. And of course, they can do it through the phone, and the requester has visibility in all of where the approvals stand. So a lot of capabilities, and I know Brian really likes the approval feature. Brian, what's another feature that we redid that you really like?
Yeah. Oh gosh, let's see. I like the one, although I'm going to come back to the portal on this particular one. When you have the ability to submit service requests with multiple questions. Some of them might be conditionally oriented, which is something that's new. But all of that then in the background is using Power Automate Flow to be able to take that information that was submitted by the customer, create a ticket, and then use it potentially to launch automations. So, I want to create a VM, and maybe you have a script that will create a VM, a standard VM somewhere for the end user. Or maybe, we automate the process of creating basic accounts, right? So the old story of, hey, we want to take some of that low-hanging fruit from the administrator so they're freed up to do, other work rather than some of the more routine and mundane tasks that they tend to do. So I kind of like that particular feature and how that was implemented, because it gives us a lot of flexibility to build out different or to support the implementation of different processes, not only IT processes, but now we're talking about the potential to move into other enterprise areas, HR, facilities, finance. All of the different things now come into play, and we can leverage the connectors that are part of the platform to really, integrate all of the business areas and under one tool potentially.
See, and I really like that example. I'm glad you brought that up, because before, when we were doing the question and answer set, we were using a lot of plug-in based concepts to capture that answer information. But then we migrated it to the new Portal Web API, and what that allows us to do is have a lot of logic, not in the back end, but it purely runs on the portal. So we were able to build additional components and other bootstrap question types, such as your choice, your multi-selects, and then the Portal API is. All that's doing is creating your answer set and answers. So it opened up a lot of capabilities for us from a user experience perspective. So that's a really good example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to come back to one more, if I may, Amit. I'm sorry. And another good feature is there's lots of them that I could talk to here, but I'm just going to pick one. It's the notification, what we call notification channels, which now gives us a lot of flexibility to automatically create emails on very typical actions on a ticket. Hey, it's been assigned. Hey, it's been the status has changed. It's been created. And then in each one of those, now I can send that note to the end user or the potential owner of the ticket, all through data, right? It's all through data where, we're going to reference an email template as an example that get tied to these notification channels. So having that flexibility to do that easily for relatively routine items, is really beneficial. And then there's always the capability to go outside of that box a little bit, and you want to do notifications or a Teams notification. That was a good one. You mentioned approvals. You mentioned approvals, and that's one where you can have the voting option, if you will, in Teams. But we have other customers. One you worked with that you and I worked on together, where they're now sending messages in Teams when priority one incidents come in, right through our application with links back to the tickets and all kinds of possibilities through that ability to communicate with Teams.
Yeah, you don't miss making all those email workflows.
No, we still do some, right? We still do some.
Yeah, still do some, but not as much as we used to.
Criteria from time to time, but no. Having some of them there out of the box certainly makes it life a lot easier, not only for me but for the customers as well.
Absolutely, because all you have to do is pick and choose what triggers that you want. Those processes that people would have to create over and over again. Now you just pick and choose. Do I want it on assignment or a status change? So you're right. It made the customization, the configuration of our product a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's another one too that as we're talking here, another one that's really quite good is the ability to dynamically, virtually anyway, change the statuses and how you want to implement your processes when you're managing a ticket, right? Yep. It's all data driven. So if I wanted to, manage a ticket from, status perspective of it's awaiting assignment or assigned or in progress or on hold or, resolved, or if I want to put something in there that's very unique to my process that I'm doing it, not a problem. We have, and you can talk to the development component of this, but now I just say, hey, I want to add, these other status areas to my process of managing an incident, a service request, a problem, and capture that as data, and then we have the code in place to really make that adaptable to very specific environments, should that be a need.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because we used a couple of different methods to do that, because we wanted to make it very easy for the user to, if I select on hold, give me the on hold reason. So Brian was speaking to, you're creating those on hold reasons or resume reasons within the Dataverse. It's a table that you just go in if you have the appropriate security permissions, and you create those records. But what we do in the back end, instead of just showing a lookup field and you're saying, okay, on this when I select this status, show me on hold, we wanted it to be very easy. We built a PCF control, so when you select something on hold, it's only going to show you the on hold reasons. If I select the resume PCF control, it's going to show you the resume reason. So it's going to auto hide and show things, but make it very easy and pleasing to the eye to select, okay, if I'm pressing on hold, I know the SLA is going to stop and have this reason in these additional fields. So we wanted to build a PCF control to kind of have that nice user experience, but read from the data that, Brian or someone's Power Apps administrator is putting in based on business requirements.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that functionality can now be moved over, or I should say flexibility that you're getting as a developer, how much of that can actually move over to your partners as well, right? Because they would need certain level of capabilities as well. The environments that they're going to be within, it's going to be hundreds of them. So how much of that flexibility transfers over as well?
I would say a lot of it can transfer over, because anything that's built in the Power Automate, you can see how we structured it. It's a managed solution. You can go in, look at our expressions, look at how we're looping through a number of different records. Now, PCF controls and other things such as plugins, that is proprietary. So, but we always work with our partners if they have a question, and we work hand in hand with them to teach them what we've discovered within the Power Platform. And that's the great thing about us being on the Power Platform, is the community is huge. I think I love that aspect of it, is so community driven, and the knowledge is very shareable. I've never asked a question and not had some kind of answer, or someone pointing me in the direction of when I'm in a roadblock. And we treat our partners and even our customers, because they say, you're doing something really cool. We have almost the same requirement. How can we do that? With us being on the Power Platform, a lot of the capabilities you can look and see and adapt that to your applications.
So what you're really saying is you're enabling them and ultimately their business as well.
Absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. Brian, this one's for you. So I know you've been in the business of building IT service management. You had mentioned before, even IT asset management for a number of years, right? So can you give some examples of things that can be done now with ServiceTeam using Power Apps?
Yeah, sure. Well, one that comes to mind, again, this is drawing back again against my experience managing a call center and being involved in the business side of an outsourcer's world as well. And that is one of the things that I like. And I don't, there's elements, of course, here that would be in, just in the platform in general. But one thing that I really like is the ability for us to now generate management data that is actionable, that we can report on, we can show in Power BI reports, over and above, the basics, which is, how many tickets do we have? How many tickets of this priority? How many tickets, with this category? That's all great. How many, SLAs, service level objectives have we met or breached, with respect to the SLAs that we have in place? That's all great. We have all of that in the application. But there's underlying data that we've now put out and really brought to the forefront. And very specifically, we're capturing something called timeline insights. And I would have loved to have had this back in the day. We had a fine service desk application that was integrated with Provance ITAM. There was nothing wrong with it, but it was difficult to do some of the things we're doing today, quite frankly. So the idea with timeline insights is, think of it as much like an audit history, but with flexibility and the ability to report on it easily. So we're capturing records, things like this person made this change on this date, and here's what they changed, the before and after values. That's good. So now we have that. So from an ITAM perspective, that comes into play more than you would think. that it comes into play as people want to know, well, who had an asset at a particular point in time. They might be doing some research on the activities on that asset during a specific period. So things like that now become very easily and reportable. But the other thing that I like is we now have the ability to say, okay, these tickets or an individual ticket was in, let's say, a waiting assignment status for X number of minutes or hours. And it was assigned for X number of minutes or hours. It was in progress. It was on hold, for different lengths of time. So this is valuable information now. From an individual ticket perspective, could become important if now I need to respond to a customer who is, questioning whether or not we've achieved the service level objective relative to our agreement. So we have that, and we can see, okay, well, it was on hold for three whole weeks, and that's why, we say we met the objective, but yet a month of elapsed calendar time went past. Or you might be able to look at it at a summary level. Well, if I notice that on my Power BI reports that we're spending 6 hours on average waiting for a ticket to simply be assigned to an individual before we even do anything on it, now we can quickly realize that we have a problem and we need to adjust the process in one way or another, either by getting the manager involved in the distribution of the tickets, or getting our agents to be a little bit more responsive to assigning it to themselves. However you end up doing that work. So simply having that data in place is a real value that I wish I would have had as a call center manager many years ago. But now it's available, and you can report it 6 ways to Sunday and be able to export it and do whatever you want with it. So that was a very good feature that the development team added in.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Bringing in Power BI and slicing and dicing that data in many different ways, right? You can even add business data to it to get a true picture of what's really happening. It's not just about the ticket itself. There could be external factors at play as well, and using Power BI capability certainly enables. So yeah, appreciate your thoughts on that. Chris, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think that was perfect.
Yeah, if I may, if we have a couple of extra seconds, one more thing. Again, from a management perspective, sorry, Amit, we have now and have some flexibility. Again, from an implementation perspective, an MSP perspective, somebody who's managing this environment. But we have time entries that are associated to not only the tickets, but the customers or accounts or agents or services, and then the different kinds of time entries that you're making. So now you're not just looking at elapsed time from the point in time where the ticket was raised until you closed it, right? Which is valuable in of itself. But now, in that period of time, how long do we actually work on this thing, right? That's where you now get some value. And what were we doing during that time we were working on that? And again, it comes back to now the ability to report on that, perhaps even use that as input into an invoicing or billing process and things of that nature. So there's lots of management data. I mean, so it's not about getting a ticket closed. It's about understanding how you're going about getting that ticket closed and where you might be able to make improvements.
And I think that's one thing that, a lot of people ask for in ITSM is being able to trace what happened, what series of events lead me to where I am now. As an example, you could have 50 incidents being logged in the last 10 minutes. Being able to trace that back, I mean, this is a reactive point of view, but being able to track from based on that huge spike on incidents? Was it, if you're not doing asset management, maybe you're strictly doing service management, what changed on a particular configuration item, which is a VM hosting a service that we're providing to a customer? Did something change on that? If it changed, where was the change, and who submitted that change and approved it for that change to occur on that CI? And those are a lot of the questions that I agree with Brian, is being able to account for what things happen within your organization, but being able to trace it backwards and forwards, and even at a certain point of time, is very valuable in this day and age of ever-changing services and customers, and how people interact with people's data. So,
yeah, and just having all of that data in the Dataverse is, which is the foundation there, right? Now we can do anything with it and share anything and report on it. Just having that at the platform level is a real advantage.
Thanks. Appreciate the insight there. So thank you. Chris, I'll move over to you. So can you speak to some of the main drivers, right, and the approach you took regarding the design, right, the design process?
Absolutely. So, the overall design of our ServiceTeam products, we wanted to take a kind of a getting back to basics approach, and not a sense of an ITSM basics, but more from a user experience perspective of if I need to, as an example, as Brian did, if I need to enter in a ticket for a customer, how many clicks does it take me to get that ticket submitted where I can respond with an ID to the customer? And we wanted to really go through it with a fine-tooth comb and really track, all right, how can I get that agent to the right data that they're requesting, or put in the right data for us then to be able to action that and be able to automate certain things that agents may not need to do. What other data sources can we bring in, either from a custom connector from Power Automate, or do we need to build a custom connector using the API of Dataverse? Because getting data in and out of the Dataverse is very simple. But one thing that we may overlook with all the features that we want to input is, how is the agent going to be efficient working within our application? So we took a long look. We did a lot of customer interviews, brought Brian in as well, our consultant services team with development. And it was a group effort on how efficiently can we make this from a user experience to where you can either get to the data that you need or enter the data that needs to be submitted to really understand what's going on within your organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's from a design perspective. That's spot on. If I'd have it's the old saying, if you had a nickel for every time, right? We heard, and Chris, you were with me on a lot of these too. We were working together, and it was, if Brian, or Chris, your stuff is really good. We like it. But when I'm under a bit of pressure, dealing with an upset customer, it's just taking me too many clicks. Quite frankly, too many clicks to where I need to be able to make that happen. And it's directly to Chris's point, and that was really a driver. Or even a more basic thing. Hey, your dashboards and charts are really cool. We like the visualization, but practically for an agent, that's getting in my way. It's taking me extra clicks to get to the work that I really need to do. So streamline the dashboard, and it's very focused with visual cues, on the tickets that they have assigned, and cues when you've received the contact from an end user, cue if it's a VIP, or cue if it's a hot account, where you're struggling with customer sat. Visual cues and icons showing you the priority of the ticket to really, make that experience as as productive as possible, and the agents can move around quickly and respond appropriately to the tickets that are out there. That was a major element.
Yeah, and that really boiled down into the architecture. Instead of us having one process maybe split out into 6 or 7 tables, we wanted to converge that and simplify. Maybe let's augment some of the data within a table and then process that into child records. And, with us not having to solely rely on plugins or, custom JavaScript or, maybe an out-of-the-box workflow, with the extension of Power Automate being able to be incorporated in our application, it made us it made it a lot easier from an architecture perspective, as well as being able to reduce the amount of dev time, pure custom dev, because we're able to leverage things that, may not necessarily been Provance IP, but we wanted to do something a little bit more complex. But we wanted to build it in a way in a Power Automate to where now the customer can configure it even further, where a plugin it's just locked code. You can't touch it, you can't do it, can't see it. So we wanted to give more power, if you'd like to say, back to the administrators and the agents when working through an application, being able to configure it, give them more configuration options than what we offered before.
Yeah, I love the giving more power, right? That's why Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate. So let's expand on that a little bit, right? So Chris, this ServiceTeam ITSM utilizes all of the components of Power Platform. It's not just about Power Apps. So and we touched on some of them previously, but can you tell me how you are leveraging the functionality that is available within Power BI and Power Automate, right? And another thing, could you also share some real world examples, right, of how organizations can benefit given that ServiceTeam ITSM was built on Power Platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So, with us, we've talked about this a little bit before on how agents will enter the data and how we either can manually action or automate an action on that data. But, Brian brought up a good point. Data is really good, but if I'm not able to aggregate and visualize that data, I can't make really any type of business decision without using some other means of visualizing that data. So what we did is we built a ready-made data model for Power BI, and we've even embedded that in the ServiceTeam app. So right there, you have our data model for our service team products, from Essentials to Professional and Enterprise. All right, so you don't have to spend the time understanding the overall data structure of our application, because it's already there. We took it a step further, and a lot of the measures that Brian did want these measures. So what we're able to visualize now is, month-over-month burn rate. What is my backlog percentage for this month? What is my current backlog? So it gives you a little bit more. We wanted to provide more time intelligent measures within our data model. That way you don't have to understand our table, but you can pull and understand what fields that you want to visualize and use our ready-made measures and add to them. So that is a huge analytics growth that we've had with our service team. Some real-world examples that I've seen is we have out-of-the-box connectors with our own custom gateway called the Provance Services Platform. But let's say you don't have our connector doesn't go into one of your event monitoring systems that you may have. And you really need that type of information and correlate that with your CMDB within the configuration items. You can build upon our data model and then correlate, let's say, your event data for anything that was advisory or a warning message, and you can correlate that with our data model, because we have configuration items, we have incidents, and you can easily join that within the Power Automate. Your last question of what I would like to see, as a developer, I look at certain processes when it comes to requirements. And I think this came from being a consultant and working with Brian, is I want to look at your entire process. That way I can determine where are some deficiencies or bottlenecks and be able to determine how we can automate and save time back. Because, let's be honest, time is money. So what I would like to see, as an example, as the HR data, all right? When you're thinking about onboarding, when somebody says onboarding, you're only thinking, let's say, the IT portion of it. Okay, I have this request from HR for this particular person, and we need to deploy products, services, and add them to certain groups. I would want to see the entire path. All right, when did that person become from an interviewee to an actual employee? What other management and forms did they have to fill out? And that way, when you're looking at the entire process, not just from an IT perspective, but applying ITSM and moving it more to a modern service management and putting it all across the enterprise. So your enterprise service management, where I can use the same principles I have in IT and say, how can I make our HR process better? How can we gain efficiencies in HR using the data model that Provance has supplied to us and bring other data from other aspects? That way we can get those additional gains and keep on evolving as we mature in the Power Platform and as our business changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me give you a real example there too, with one that we worked on. It might be a year ago now, but it's just not. Yes, it was an onboarding process, but and it had IT elements, giving access to folders, accounts, etc. But there were expansions into things like building security. Well, what kind of badge does the person need? Do they need 24/7? Other facilities related items. We had one customer who got into the finance side. Back when people were traveling anyway. Does the person need a company credit card? And if so, what are the terms that are required for that? So it can really extend to Chris's point, really, but it can really extend well beyond just your, the more traditional ITSM items into really any area of the business that an onboarding process would touch on. And we've had some more simple ones than that as well. Pre-approved software can request that via a portal, and that gets automatically installed at the end of a process that we built. Or for somebody forgets to do their out of office message in an email. I've had this one just in the last 2 months or so, and a manager has the ability to go in through a portal request and set the out of office message for that person, right? Yeah. And it ought to, a job is run, PowerShell is executed, the messages are posted for the dates and times that are appropriate, and off you go. So, you can really automate lots of different things, all with a starting point of, a service team, and then leveraging the capabilities of the platform to do it.
Oh, and I remember during the pandemic, we were working with a customer that had a lot of, it was more for resource allocation across the U.S. So when COVID hit, they needed to track what the majority of the requests are coming from certain locations. And they saw ServiceTeam and our product as the perfect gateway to track that information. So when somebody would email this particular company at certain COVID email addresses, it was routed to the proper team in creating service requests and assigning it to the right team, so they understood what resources were where during the pandemic, and they saw that type of analytics within our ready-made data set, because they were simply creating service requests, but using medical type categories rather than, let's say, your traditional IT category. So it's another real world example, applying our product and principles in our data model to other aspects that you need to track and be able to do it very quickly, because we all know, that the pandemic came super quick, and they were ready and willing to just try something and apply technology to really track where their resources were needed during that time.
Thanks, Brian and Chris. Brian, this one's for you. So both Microsoft partners and MSPs can leverage their current and future investments in Microsoft solutions by using ServiceTeam ITSM. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, we've really been, talking about that here all across the last 50 minutes or so. But there are so many other elements in the platform. Chris talked about one with connectors. The vast array of connectors that are available through the platform, with Microsoft providing it to get to other third-party applications or other workloads within the Power Platform. That is an area where we'll be continually looking at and working with customers to leverage our capabilities against what their needs of the business are. That's just invaluable, having that sort of reach into other areas and other technologies to be able to operate the business. That's really the key, I think. We'll be expanding more. We talked a little bit about Teams, and being able to send messages and being able to send approvals. And we're working on the ability to simply create a ticket through Teams as well. So we'll be looking at that part of the overall architecture, the Microsoft architecture that's out there, and try to leverage it more to make, again, all about that customer or agent experience. What can we do to make that better and easier for people to use and access?
Yeah, that's a great point, right? So as we are expanding, you mentioned about connectors. So as we keep expanding functionality, as we keep on adding connectors to Power Platform, that investment immediately transfers over to your solution as well, and ultimately to your partners as well, because now they get that functionality right away. So appreciate those thoughts. Chris, this one is for you. So how about core Power Platform services like security, like roles, or even business units, right? How do those play a part in ServiceTeam?
Yeah, so ServiceTeam deals with a lot of security, because when you're looking at your idle practices, people go to an ITSM solution because they want something to where you can assign responsibility and have accountability for certain people and certain processes. That's why you always hear incident managers, request fulfillers, your problem owners that are creating your known error database. And that plays a huge role, because certain teams may not be included in a certain process because that's not a part of their role. And that goes back to when I was talking about the user experience, being able to architect an application suited for a person's role. The security model inside of the Power Platform allows us to be extremely flexible, either making it very broad or very granular to organizations. And with any enhancements to the security model that the Power Platform provides, we automatically obtain that. We have ready-made security roles for, your service desk users that may only work on customer-facing issues for like incident and request fulfillment. But then you have other roles that may work more in the CMDB, the service delivery, working on automations, change notices, and working through problem management. But then we want to be able to adhere to any different kind of organization that wants to apply ServiceTeam. So, if you think of our different product lines of ServiceTeam Essentials, and you may have a smaller team, that automatically means you may work in different areas, all right? Because you don't have as many resources to say, this team is only going to work on incident, this team's only going to work on service request. It just doesn't work. With the new private preview of modernizing business units, we love that aspect because now users are not restricted to their business unit. We can now apply security roles in different business units to adhere to either small, mid-size, or even enterprise that cross-train or have dual responsibilities, especially in the enterprise. You may have a developer working in multiple pipelines for a release management. So with the modernizing business units, that's a huge win for us because now I can have a particular user and then assign them different security roles to work within that business unit, but still have that accountability of this agent will only see the data that they're supposed to be working on or create the data that they're allowed to work on. And that just plays into the ITSM and our ServiceTeam product just hand in hand.
Appreciate those thoughts. We're coming up on the hour, so quickly, maybe Brian, this is for you. Tell us what's coming down the line, right? So, for example, are you doing anything with bots or virtual agents, or frankly, any other areas?
Actually, maybe that one's better for Chris, being part of the development team. I'm not always up to date on exactly what we're doing. So, Chris, if you don't mind, to weigh in on that one.
Yeah. So the roadmap is all right. I'm going to try not to give too much away. I heard bot. We are absolutely working on a virtual agent to where now that it's more solution aware, we can now create topics and architect a starter bot to maintain some of those more simpler requests, such as, I need a password reset. What's current stage is my request in? What's the IP address for my VM? And it goes find it in the CMDB and just gives it back to the user. So we're working on topics to be able to create a virtual agent to supply that. A number of things coming into very soon within our professional and enterprise solutions is more embedding of Canvas apps. So much like on our self-service portal, where you can have different controls on the self-service portal for your questions. So if you want to have a date, a choice, multi-select, like you would have in the portal, we're also going to be bringing that capability inside of the Powerapps UI with an embedded Canvas app, a number of different PCF controls that we'll be developing within the CMDB aspect of ServiceTeam. And I'm only going to hint at this, but there's going to be some more custom connectors, but not for the Provance services platform. So stay tuned and watch out for Power Automate for some Provance connectors.
Yeah. Now I will add briefly here. The Enterprise Edition will be released in Q1 2022, and in that edition will include full change management. We'll have DevOps connector, among other improvements as we're going on. Asset management, ITAM, will be released here towards the end of this calendar year as well. That'll all be integrated within the ServiceTeam product family.
It's going to be fun.
Any final comments? I know we're up at 3 p.m. here in Eastern Time. Any final thoughts?
No, I will just go ahead and first of all thank everybody for being in attendance with us here today. We do appreciate it. Thank you, Amit, for moderating and keeping Chris and I in control as best as you could. And thank you for Raquel for hosting as well. And then finally, for the attendees, if you do want to speak with us further, please contact us at info@provance.com and go to AppSource and look at a test drive. We'd be more than happy to speak with you in a lot more detail, give you a product demonstration so that you can see some of the things that we've talked about here today. So thank you very much once again for your time and listening to our presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Sorry, Amit. Thank you so much, Brian and Amit and Chris, for being with us today. And thank you again to the audience for attending today's webcast, which was sponsored by Provance and presented by rcpmag.com. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.